today I wanted to talk about Lego Dreamzz for a little bit because Season 2 Part 2 came out recently and it was pretty good. It wasn't absolute peak. I can't say it's the best TV show in the world, but it was so much better than Season 1. And I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I want to talk about it because Season 1 didn't really get that much of a positive reception from the fan base. And that's okay. This show is meant for kids, and sometimes shows for kids are not appealing to older people, and that's fine if that happens. It's wonderful when shows for kids appeal to older audiences like Ninjago and Monkie, but it is okay if that doesn't happen. But today I really want to put a positive light on Lego Dreamzz because it finally deserves it, and I really want to help, at least in my part, to encourage these original Lego themes, especially when they're doing just fine like this. So let's talk about the problems with Lego Dreamzz Season 1, or at least the problems I had with it. I always thought the real life story, because they had the story split between the dream world and the real world, the real world was very slow and bland, and basically it had these main characters going through the usual kid in school tropes. You got bullied, and you got these athletic days and festival days, and it definitely struggled to captivate my attention sometimes. But the dream world was definitely a huge improvement. It still wasn't great. I just think the main characters in Season 1 weren't compelling at all. Mateo and Izzie were fine. They were siblings, and then they had like a single dad, and that was kind of interesting. Logan was the best part of Season 1 because he started out as a bully, and he kind of started realizing he's shallow and superficial, and he actually had a lot of insecurities inside, which led him to get this tiny monster form, which represented that he's insecure and thinks he's this tough guy, but at the end of the day, he's just pretty small. But even that kind of lends to his strength by the end of the season, as he really starts to become a more honest person with himself. Cooper was probably the most boring character. He's just kind of there. He was originally Mateo's best friend. Now he's Logan's best friend. There's nothing much to say about him, but Season 2 does Cooper so well, and we'll get to that in a second. Zoe, I thought she was just a little bit cringe at times. Like, she's like the older cool cat kid, but not really, because she's just kind of like a caricatured version of that trope. My favorite story beats of Season 1 were probably the Sandman's Castle. I was very surprised when Logan didn't get his hourglass. And there's actually a very big risk to trying to get your hourglass, because the concept is that some kids are aware dreamers, which means you can kind of lucid dream and you know what you're doing in your dreams, and you will lose that ability if you don't get your hourglass. But if you do get your hourglass, you can create things beyond your imagination, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, the Dreamzz world building is very intriguing. And another one of my favorite parts about this first season is the Nightmare King. He was just like this ugly little monster, which was one of the dream pets. Basically what happens is some of these aware dreamers, if they're really attached to something, they'll have a dream pet. So Mateo has Z-Blob, Mr. Oz has Albert, and Lunia, this insane dream crafter who actually died in the first 5 minutes of the show, had the Nightmare King. He was called something different at the time. The Nightmare King's jealousy built over time, and he became the ruler of the Grim Realm. So that was very intriguing. I think the animation definitely needed some work in some areas. Like, Phil the Lion was so jarring the first time I saw him. But yeah, that was Season 1. Season 2, I think, gets a lot better because they're finally done doing the usual tropes, and they're kind of forced to be its own thing. In the real world, Mateo and Izzie's dad is starting to date another girl because he's divorced, and, you know, Mateo and Izzie don't have a mom. And that's very interesting, seeing Mateo and Izzie adapt to that. I think, you know, that's something that kids should learn, and there, you know, there are a lot of kids in that situation. So it's good for them to kind of see that, hey, like, getting a new parent isn't easy. But I think the coolest part is on Zoe's side. So Zoe actually had her mom pass away, I believe, and now she lives with her aunt. And her dad is actually the Night Hunter, who was a henchman for the Nightmare King. And that's really cool because this guy is actually stalking her in real life, and that's creepy. There's just this guy in a hood stalking this girl through Manhattan. Like, that's really intriguing. And then he disguises himself in the dream world and meets up with Zoe there. So that's just really cool how these two worlds are connecting to kind of make for completely new issues that you wouldn't even have thought of before. They do make up towards the end, but I thought that twist was really good. Now, Logan throughout the season actually meets a girl called Astrid, and he takes a very intense liking to her. Astrid's on a wheelchair, and I really like that representation. You know, she's just like everyone else. It's not that she's any different because she's on a wheelchair. So let me give you some background context before we move on. This season has the Dream Chasers going to some trials at the Castle Nocturnia because that's just how traditions work, and there's a whole society of dreamers and the government's involved in all this. So our group of Dream Chasers and Mr. Oz have to comply to these rules, which inevitably results in everybody's doom at the end of season 2 part 1. But these Dream Chaser bureaus are from all over the world. We got people from Germany and Asia. So that's where Logan meets Astrid, and these two go on a very important character arc, and I think my favorite bit was when they both tried to get their hourglass, because Logan had never gotten his hourglass because he failed the test the first time, and Astrid's broke, and they both kind of realized they don't really need the hourglass and that they could work on this together. Other things make them special than the hourglass themselves. And then the main villain of the story was the witch, and she was apparently the first dream ever, like before society was even created, before humans maybe started evolving. She was there, which I thought was very cool. Like, I like how Dreamzz connects everything to science. There's a couple references they make about Einstein and the dream world and all that. The witch actually has a lot more to her than it looks like. She actually just has a hard time moving on because her sister wanted to explore all these new islands, but she didn't, and she had extreme grief. So Zoe and her actually have a moment at the end where they finally let go. Zoe forgives her father, the Night Hunter, and the witch also moves on. So I think that was extremely deep and thought-provoking. But the witch, before we get to the finale, is like conquering all these different dream realms, and it's pretty cool to see the dream realm just come to absolute nothing. And then Mateo and Cooper actually pull off this insane stunt where they rebuild the entire dream world. That was insanely cool as well. There are actually moments where I felt like cheering for these guys. Speaking of Cooper, so Cooper gets a lot better because the witch, what she does is she steals their memories for a little bit. And in a very twisting turn of events, when Izzie's getting everyone's memories back, she actually accidentally breaks Cooper's. So Cooper doesn't get his engineering skills back. So originally that was very tragic, but they actually turned it into a really cool character arc where Cooper tends to get a lot more creative and he really starts to branch out and makes the Koopasaurus Rex. But yeah, in total, Dreamzz is no Monkey Kid or Ninjago, but it is getting significantly better, and I do hope it goes on because as far as I can tell, very young kids love this show, and older kids can like this show if you're willing to be patient enough for that second season. And I hope it gets better for season 3 once they really start branching out and trying to be something completely different. Thank you for watching, and as usual, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.